Welcome to our YouTube channels. I'm Lauren Leroy, also known as Little Miss Funeral.
I am Melissa Unfred, also known as the Modern Mortician.
I'm so excited to be doing this video. Melissa is actually, you are one of the funeral people online that I've actually met in person. You and Kermit. So I'm so happy to be talking with you again. So we thought that we would do a video collab together, and we are talking today about one of Melissa's many areas of expertise and an area that I am very interested in as well, but do not have as much expertise, which are therapy dogs. So Melissa, do you want to just start off by telling us a little bit more about Kermit, that everybody loves Kermit, and everything that he had to do in order to be certified?
Ooh, that's a big order. All right.
I know, I'm sorry.
Let me start by introducing you to Kermit. This fine beast is Kermit the dog. Kermit is the first certified therapy dog in funeral care in the state of Texas. I'm going to put him on the ground now. I initially started looking for a dog because a year and a half prior, my cat had died, and I was exiting a relationship where there was an animal present, and I knew I wouldn't have that dog to lean on anymore. So I started looking for my own dog at the encouragement of my doctor and my therapist. I was going through a lot of life changes at the time, and I was like, dog, okay. Well, I had been a cat person up until that point, but after spending some time with other dogs, when I moved to the Austin area, I was like, this is a community that can really embrace animals being with people, and I'll look into it. So I started looking on petfinder.com and found this mismatched-eyed dog. And I was like, that's perfect. And he had just been listed that night at a shelter about 2 hours away. So the next morning I was calling the shelter at 9:55, 9:58, 10 o'clock, 10:02, they finally answered the phone. And I was like, I really want to meet this dog. And they were like, well, he has a brother too. You should totally come and check them both out. And I'm like, okay. Like, I had to feign interest in both of them so they'd keep me at the top of the list to come and see him. And I immediately drove to Waco. I had done the online application on my phone prior to leaving, like while I was filling up for gas. They called me when I'm halfway there, and they're like, you're approved for both dogs. And I'm like, yay. And I get there, and they bring both of them in. And the brown and white one that did not go home with me that day, his name is Moose now, and he lives in Colorado, and he was adopted by a girl that takes him to college with her, and he very much acted like a border collie. Kermit, on the other hand, was very reserved. He was kind of sitting like a foot away from me, watching his brother bounce all over my lap and fetch the ball, and I just kind of reached over and scooped him into my lap. And at that point, he didn't get out of my lap. And when the lady came in and asked me if I was ready for the paperwork for both of them, I told her, look, I'm getting this dog as an emotional support for myself, and I work in funeral care, and it's going to be a lot of time that I'm going to need to invest in this dog so he can travel with me. I'd really just like to get the one. And so she seemed kind of disgruntled, but left anyway to get the paperwork, and Kermit went home with me. And I did find out later about Moose getting adopted, and we've had 2 reunions, one in Colorado and one in Dallas. So that's how Kermit came to become my sidekick.
So this is Lindy Ruff for people who's not interested in the camera at all. He's like, no, which is my boy. And it's so funny because I feel like it's a little bit of a similar situation to how you first came to get Kermit. I was living with my husband at the time in an apartment building, and we really, really wanted a dog, but our landlord was really against having animals if like just the area that we were. So I remember I was going to my doctor and I was kind of like talking about how we kind of wanted a dog, but we probably were going to have to move and just different things like that. And my doctor kind of looked at me and was like, well, you work in a funeral home, right? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, did you ever think about getting an emotional support animal? She goes, if you get an emotional support animal, your landlord can't discriminate against that because it's not just a pet, it's serving more purpose. And I was like, I never even heard of that before, but I'll look into it a little bit. So I went home then for my doctor's appointment and I told that to my husband and we started looking into it a little bit more. And I was like, you know what, maybe this would be good for me, because at the time I didn't think that I was an unhappy person, but looking back at my life then, like now, without Lindy, I tell my husband, I'm like, were we happy people before Lindy? Because he just brings so much joy into our lives for both of us. And we both work like completely opposite ends of the spectrum. He's a banker, I'm a funeral director, but I feel like we both have stresses within our jobs that he just helps with. So my husband went on Pet Finder as well, which I feel like is such a good website if you are searching for your little, like, for the high five for your little furry like best friend. And we went to a town. I live like in Buffalo, New York, and we went to a town that was near Syracuse, New York. So it was about 3 hours away in order to go look at Lindy. And it was funny because it was him and another little like brother dog as well. But we knew we were only getting one, and we weren't like, they didn't say anything to us about getting more than one. And it was so funny because I was looking at his brother, and then my husband was looking at Lindy, and he was like, no, this is the dog for us. And I'm like, how do you know? Because his brother was like all cute and puppy and kissing and cuddly and running around. And Lindy was like in the corner just being like, you know, like not really doing much. But my husband was like, he picked up Lindy and they touched like nose to nose. And then he said like he just kind of like nestled in his chest, and he's like, I knew at that point that Lindy was ours. And like I didn't see any of this because I'm playing with like the brother dog over here, but my husband and like Lindy are actually bonding on the other side. So then we ended up leaving with Lindy, and it was so funny because I remember like walking out of the place being like, do you think his brother's going to get adopted? Well, different end of the story, we brought Lindy home and my in-laws actually fell in love with him and they went and adopted his brother. So now so it's like such a fun little twist to it because they weren't looking for a dog at all, but like they loved him so much that they ended up going to get him too. But like I was saying, for Lindy, we've just basically we have just done his basic obedience classes. So he's gone through his puppy classes, his adult classes, and he is not certified. He does not have his good canine certification or anything above that. So Lindy is not a therapy animal, but. And I know we were kind of talking about this before we were filming a little bit. Lindy has accompanied me to the funeral home, and he does go to the funeral home with me on occasion. But the difference is that I only bring him when we don't have the public in the building. So he's there with me, but he's not interacting with people. Just because number one, he doesn't have his certifications. I don't want to advertise him as a therapy dog because he's not a therapy dog, and because he really is just like my own emotional pet, basically. I don't want to be held liable in the event that something were to happen at the funeral home. So he doesn't interact with the public there at all. He basically just comes to work with me to help me through my day.
So he's an emotional support animal, which is like tier level number 1 in the whole animal job spectrum. I feel like the next step up from that would be a comfort animal, which is where a dog has maybe been through some of the basic training, like the Canine Good Citizenship Test. I recommend that one to anybody that wants to work with their animal in the public or travel with their animal. Like if you need to fly, Canine Good Citizenship Test is a really good meter for how your dog might behave in public. And after I got Kermit, we initially started basic training with a lady that I found in the neighborhood named Janet. And we recently did her burial. She passed away, and her dog Max, who also helped train Kermit, died about 6 months prior. And those stories are shared on my Instagram. Per her wishes, she definitely wanted to be remembered and help educate people on this new option. Well, new old option. But yeah, we went through the Canine Good Citizenship test, and from there, we enrolled in the Austin Dog Alliance, which is now called the Dog Alliance. It's a nonprofit training group that got their parameters set up by Therapy Dogs International and other big name groups like that. All right, so what is a comfort animal? Comfort dog. A comfort dog is a dog that can be approached by people without freaking out. A comfort dog is a dog that may be at your dentist's office, that belongs to one of the receptionists, that gets along well with everybody that works there and is there for the staff. A comfort dog could also be a dog living at the nursing home full-time. It's a staff dog. He's a comfort dog. Unless they tell you otherwise that he is a certified therapy dog, it's a comfort dog. But the comfort dog thing, I think it'd be great for funeral homes to incorporate working dogs into what they're offering the families. But I think there's a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding out there, because it's like Wild Wild West, you know? And as the government is catching up to this, because people are abusing the emotional support animal or service dog titles, they will eventually begin to come up with things that we'll have to carry to prove our dog's qualifications. And it's really important that people realize this is a big deal, having these different trainings under your belt or certifications when you're serving the community at large. It not only covers your Katukas, but it also protects the families that you're serving and caring for and the general public as well.
Absolutely. I mean, because it's super easy to go online nowadays and type in service dog vest and purchase something on Amazon to have your dog wear. And it's, if your dog is wearing something that says he has a certification that they don't have, that is harming not only your dog potentially, if he would get into an altercation with another service animal or a person that he might be interacting with, but it's also harming the handlers and the dogs that have gone through all of this training, because it takes so much time, so much money, and so much energy to be able to have your dog hold this title. That's why it's not a title that should be taken lightly, which I feel like, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that is why you are so proud of Kermit, and with him being the first certified therapy dog in Texas, because it's a huge deal. It's not like you just took him to a class and, oh, now we have a dog and he's working with me in the funeral industry.
That's right. I understand, and I'm fully aware that there are other dogs that have served families at funeral homes before, but the certification came around from the American Kennel Club in 2015, so it's not a new thing. But it's like a funeral director or an embalmer having a license. Apprentices have to go through certain qualifications to earn that licensing. And so that's what it is for a certified therapy dog. There was an instance last year at the Temple Veterans Hospital where a legitimate veteran had a PTSD service dog with him, and another man brought in a dog with a vest that he had purchased online. And the other dog left his handler's side and went after the PTSD dog. And they had to put the PTSD dog to sleep because of the extensive injuries that it received. So even traveling with Kermit now has become a bit of an exacerbated nightmare because of people getting these online paper certificates that say emotional support animal just so they can fly with their dog.
For somebody who really has a need for that kind of service from their dog, I would imagine that it's pretty easy to find classes or find trainers if you're not equipped yourself. I mean, like anything, a price point is going to come along with that. But if that is really something that you need for your own mental health, then you really should be taking the steps to acquire that title for your dog so that everybody around is protected.
When Kermit went through his certification, I had two other dog owners that were in the funeral industry that reached out to me and said, hey, how did you get your dog certified? And one of them was in Lubbock and one of them was in Houston. And I was like, this is what you got to do. And if you take the certification, then your dog that's helping you in the funeral home would level up, basically. They'd go from being a comfort dog to a certified therapy dog. And then on top of that, you can serve the community at large, which is what I do with Kermit in our free time. The first one that did it was Mikey Sanders. He's a standard poodle that works in Lubbock, Texas at Sanders Funeral Home, which is family owned, and big old shout out to him for being the second that I'm aware of certified therapy dog in funeral care in Texas. And I have big old kudos because Lubbock is my hometown. It's where I grew up. So I'm glad that Mikey got that next. The third dog that I'm aware of in Texas that got their certification passed and such was Axel, the therapy dude, who is employed and partnered with Carter Funeral Home in Houston, Texas. So shout out to them as well for completing their certification and moving up, leveling up. So what makes a dog able to get certified for a therapy dog title? The way that goes is they must be 1 year of age before they can get certified. So Kermit started the classes when he was about 11 months old, and they do testing every 3 months, and he was 2 months into it, and they were doing a testing even though we still had a month of training left. And they asked me if I wanted to test him early just to kind of get his feet wet in it and see how we do. And thinking I'm rushing the gun to try to make him the first. I was like, let's take it now. So yeah, we took it a month early. So I basically tell people that he clept out of the class, but we did finish the class after he passed the certified therapy dog test. And the way I kind of explain that to people is they make you put your dog in a sit-stay. You have to leave the room and they have to stay in that position. They have people come in costumes and like interact with you, like they might be threatening or they might not. And when he's in work mode, he can't react to that. Like they had a guy come in a sombrero acting like he was drunk. So Kermit can handle drunken sombrero men.
I wish I could have seen that.
It was so good. But yeah, they even had a hot dog hallway. I talk about that there were hot dogs on the floor in the room, and you had to walk past without looking at the food or interacting with the snacks that were on this trail of yummies. So yeah, he passed by the skin of his tail. I like to tell people. And he literally became the first dog in therapy, certified therapy world, working in funeral care in Texas. So that's why we say he's the first certified therapy dog in funeral care for Texas.
I love it. And you know what? That's exactly where Lindy would have failed, is like the hot dog hallway. Like no way would he pass that one. I believe that every single animal on this earth has a purpose, whether or not it's for one person or whether or not it's to help a community, because I know that Kermit is so good with that too. I mean, you've been amazing with just traveling for different school shootings that have happened too with him. Do you want to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, that's something that another benefit to having the certified therapy dog title is that you are able to serve the community. If I'm on an assignment, which I haven't been for Austin Dog Alliance, their insurance covers Kermit. But when it's me, it's my business insurance covering Kermit. And him having that title definitely gives us a better rate. So now back to the shootings, since I went off on a tangent. We were in Tampa for a friend's husband's funeral that I was assisting with. I guess it was maybe a few months after the fact. I was helping her. And I found out about the shooting that was in Parkland. and was like, well, we're already here. And as a funeral director, I know a lot of you might get this urge, what can I do to help? And so with Kermit, I automatically have an in on what I can do to help. So it was 4 hours away, I realized the next morning when I pulled it up on GPS, and I'm like, well, we're going. And a friend of mine, also from Florida, and Kermit, drove down there from Tampa to Parkland, and they had the memorial set up on the lawn near the city center. And we went out there and just kind of walked through the area. They had crosses set up. They had memorial sites set up. There were students there. We sat down underneath the tree, and then people just started to approach us and wanted to pet Kermit. Came and just kind of sat and talked amongst each other. We hung out there for a few hours and drove back to Tampa. And then I remember telling the friend that was riding with me, I was like, it's not going to be long before I'm going to have to do this in Texas too. And within months, I guess, we had the shooting in Texas, in Santa Fe, which is just outside of Houston. So we drove down there the night of the shooting when they had the first memorial set up, and it was so different from being at Parkland. At Parkland, they'd had a few days to kind of collectively come together as a community. With Santa Fe, it was so raw. There were people that were just continually vocally crying, leaning on each other. I mean, we as funeral directors see this a lot. It was incredibly raw in that moment. It was a much different atmosphere. But yeah, I was thankful to be able to share him with other people that way without having to say a word, just kind of being present.
Absolutely. And as somebody who has personally met Kermit, I mean, he really does have a personality about him. I mean, even if you're just looking at him, those two different color eyes kind of just draw you in immediately. He's so fluffy that, like, you can't help but, like, reach out to pet him because he's the perfect package. He really is.
Yeah, I really got lucky. I seriously cannot imagine my life right now without him, because so much positive has happened from bringing him into my life. So we know our jobs are stressful. You got Lindy for those reasons, you know, to help care for you. And I got Kermit for, you know, my anxiety and depression at the time. I didn't really break out on the scene per se, and start doing events and educational stuff in the community until I had Kermit. A lot of what I did was online. I'm a terrible communicator, so anybody that's ever read my stuff online probably deduced that. But I've gotten really good at it in public because I feel more confident. I'm calmer. He's a security blankie that I get to take with me to work.
Absolutely. No, I completely understand that. And I mean, you're lucky because you really do have him with you all the time, where for me, if I'm at work and if he's not there, because if we have a busy day going on at the funeral home where we have visitations and funerals, I mean, I can have a very, very difficult and emotional day at work, and then I come home and it's like the stress just washes off because he's there and he's happy to see me.
With a service like this, you want to keep it pure. Something that really upset me early on when Kermit had gotten certified was an industry magazine published an article that said, get a dog for your funeral home. It's like a walking billboard. And it didn't just make me a little upset, it kind of made me a lot upset, because this is not a walking billboard. This is a living creature. This is my partner, my sidekick. He's not advertising. This is a pure service. This is something that's pure and lovely that you can give back to others. And I don't think it should be bastardized or cheapened by somebody writing in an article that this is a walking billboard for your funeral home. The last title of a working dog is a service dog. A service dog can be prescribed by a doctor or a therapist, but they are medically trained to perform tasks for their handler. If Kermit were to go on to service dog training, maybe his tasks would be pressure therapy. Like if I were having a panic attack, he could lay on me. I know a lot of dogs that do that. He actually does Maybe open doors, ring for assistance. A lot of people were up in arms when Sully, the president's dog, they were saying that he wasn't going to stay with the family, he was going to go back into the system. That's that dog's job, and yes, that's his only handler that he's had. But why keep such an expensive and talented dog to a family that doesn't have those medical related needs when he could be serving another veteran? So that is the reason that Sully went back into the system, per se. Something to remember that a lot of funeral directors don't think about, that I try to mention in the articles and the interviews that I have in the funeral profession about Kermit, is that if you don't have a dog and you want to provide this service, don't run out and get a dog, because you don't know what their disposition is going to be like. You don't know if they're going to pass these tests. There are nonprofit therapy dog groups in your area right now, wanting to talk to you. They want to talk to you. They want to come and provide this service to your families, and you can make a donation towards them. And you are reaching out to the community that way and making good contacts with that nonprofit group. And the people in your funeral home are happy because they see a dog, and you don't have a vet bill, you don't have insurance to pay, you don't have to worry about Fuzzy getting his tail stepped on and turning around and biting somebody, because they are covered by like $1 million. Like literally, those coverages are huge. But yeah, it's a great win-win for the nonprofit and the community and the funeral home. And you didn't have to go and do all of that for a walking billboard.
No, and that's 100, like, it is in your area. I could definitely say that too. I actually just went to a funeral, goodness, maybe about 6 months ago. And it was for the funeral home that I first started working for when I had exited mortuary school. And my boss, he was just like, he's always on the move for the next best thing. Like, he is so community driven. He wants to just provide the best services that he can for people. And I remember when I was working for him, at that time I had my beagle, who was like 12 years old, you know, older than dirt at that point. Like, he was like, you think that Bandit would like to be a service dog? And I don't even know if he used the word service dog, but like a funeral home dog. And I was like, absolutely not. Bandit like sleeps 23 hours a day. Like, he's not gonna do anything for anybody. But that was back in 2011. So he was already, you know, thinking about getting a dog for his funeral home way back when. Well, about 6 months ago, when I went to his funeral home to pay my respects for somebody who had passed away, he had 4 dogs with handlers throughout his building, and he worked with a nonprofit in our area. So what he does when he makes arrangements with families, he asks them if they would like to have these comfort dogs or service dogs. Once again, I don't know the terminology because I don't work for him anymore. But he'll ask them if they would like these dogs present. And if the family says yes, he gets, you know, these amazing dogs, and they work in shifts, because when I was talking to him about it, that's what they were saying. So, you know, they'll work for 2 hours at a time, and then they leave with their handlers, and then a new dog comes in. But they always have a dog in the building then for the visitations, if those are the family's wishes. And he doesn't, like you were saying, have to worry about vet bills or, you know, anything else that comes along with having a dog, which is like basically having a kid, you know. So he brings them in, they do their job, but he doesn't have to be a dad at the end of the day to these dogs. So Melissa, where can we find you in Kermit?
Well, our most active social media platform is Instagram, so under mod_mortician. And you will find us there. We have a lot of activity on our stories, a lot of behind the scenes for funeral care and what we do. And then we're also on Facebook and Patreon and YouTube as The Modern Mortician.
For me, you can basically find me at littlemissfuneral.com, or if you Google Little Miss Funeral, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, I have all of those too. But this, I feel, was such a good talk. I always love talking with you and Kermit. You guys just have so much knowledge on different aspects of the industry, which I think is amazing, because in the funeral world you don't have to do it all if you can align yourself with the proper professionals to help you with that. And Melissa, I just feel like not only with the therapy dogs, but with green and natural funerals, you are just a pot of knowledge. And I know that I personally love watching and following you on Instagram.
So you come for the dog and you stay for the death, or you come for the death and you stay for the dog?
I know that I definitely came for the dog because I got enough death in my life with the funeral industry, but it is fun. You will love following her every place. But yeah, I hope that we can do another talk soon.
Yes, I agree. We should.
Perfect. Well, everybody, thank you all so much for watching. We will both see you next time.
Bye.